Welcome to the Startup Grind.
I've gone through your CV and I was impressed of the list of companies you worked with, for, or still partnershiping. And I've seen different areas of that you were involved in. What is the domain that you're still in love and you're passionate about? If talking about tech companies,
right.
Tech, you said that fintech you don't love.
I'm not crazy about fintech. I kind of came through the guise of product management. So I started as a product manager, and I have a great respect for product management, not just because I did it, because I think it's partially the linchpin of a company, right? It's the piece that's got to keep the wheels from falling off, because they have to work with the engineers, they have to work with marketing, they have to work with sales in order to be able to deliver a product that the customer is really going to want. So that was I love kind of working with all of the people and trying to get consensus, trying to learn what people think is important and not. From there, I went to the dark side into more business development, and then after that, I ended up in kind of more the C-suite. So the last company that I actually technically worked for, was a salaried employee, was a company called China Mobilesoft, and we created a complete Linux platform for mobile phones before Android, and we sold it to PalmSource. So we were doing something that we really thought, okay, here is a market, and these phones are becoming more and more important. The BlackBerry was out, and we were like, there needs to be a better operating system so that you can do more things with this thing in your hand. But we knew we couldn't do it with the resources in the US, so we built the team in China, and then ended up selling it to a US company.
Let's talk a bit about the companies that you are involved right now, or the startups you advise. Until then, one short notice for the audience. If you have questions, please mark them, note them at the end of. I have a few questions prepared, so you will be able to ask Madeline whatever you want, but be sure to be connected with the tech industry. After the questions, answers session, we would somebody, you can have the floor to tell more about his startup, tell what he's doing, maybe promote his ideas. And at the end of the meeting, you'll have the chance to discuss personally with Madeline, ask her questions. Maybe you don't want everybody to hear about your great idea you have and you want a piece of advice. Okay, Madeline, I have read about PlanSense, a very interesting startup. When I read about that, I was amazed that I would never think of such a startup. Tell us what PlanSense was, how it worked, and where the idea came from.
Okay, so the CEO was, there were two founders, Madeline and Dave Wilkins. And Matt, one day was getting his haircut, and he looked over in the corner, it's a little sunny corner, and there's this like dead wilted plant over there. And he had done stuff with HVACs and sensors before, and he asked he's going to the same one every year. When he moved to San Francisco, he's still driving down to San Jose. And he's like, what's up with this plant in the corner? And she said, I don't know, everything I put there dies. And he thought, there's got to be a way to solve this problem, right? So they did a lot of research, he and Dave, and really kind of tried to kill their idea. And I think that's one of the first things that you want to do, right? Is, you have this idea, you think it's a great idea, let's make sure it's a great idea. Has anybody else done it before? Is there a better way to do it? So really they tried to kill the idea, and they realized nobody else was doing it. And so I got involved. It was still in the prototype phase, even before manufacturing. I really liked the idea. I actually invested in the company, and I joined the board. But I wasn't just a board member. I actually sat in the office and did a lot of the deals and worked with them to create partnerships and what have you. So I loved it. It was the idea was that you could use sensors like a moisture sensor, a light sensor. We had humidity at one point. and a soil sensor to be able to tell what are the needs of the plant, and then we could tell you what plant could grow in that area, or why, what this, to tell you, hey, your plant needs water, or hey, your plant is not getting enough sun. So,
so basically you've made a device that you buy, and you put it in.
And you put it in the ground, and then this was before Bluetooth LE, so before BLE, so it was a USB, so you had to pull it apart. It's been sitting in the dirt in your garden. People were buying it and loved it. Pull it out, put it into your computer, it would upload the data, and then you could do that. So we launched that product kind of into the tsunami of 2008, so into the, blades of the airplane of a really bad market. We actually sold over $1 million worth of product. Our NPS scores, which are your net promoter scores, were very, very high in the 80s. Everybody was saying they would recommend it to their friends. But we ran, it was not a good time in the valley, and a lot of money was not being invested again, as well as we did a deal with a partner who we did the deal, and then it was a company named Black & Decker, it was a tool company, and that company then got bought, and so we became an orphan within the company. So it was a very difficult thing. And then one day I happened to be at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and I happened to run into Henry Sado. I didn't run into him, a meeting with him through a friend of mine who works with him, and Henry is the CEO of Parrot. I don't know if you know that company, but they created the AR drone. So they really single-handedly launched the consumer drone market. He's a pretty extraordinary guy, and we had a great conversation, and I literally had my hand on the doorknob and was leaving, and he said, "What else are you doing?" And I told him about PlantSense, and he said, "I love that idea. I'd like to own that idea." So he said, "I happen to be on the board. I'm an investor. Let's chat." So we sold the company to Parrot, and I worked with them for a couple of years, and they created a product called Flower Power, and they also have a product called Parrot Pot.
What was the value?
The value, I can't disclose it.
It's not public.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
that's for them to disclose.
What were the lessons you've learned during the project with the PlantSense?
Well, I mean, hardware is very hard. It's you're not only dealing with a physical device, but you have the software, you have the firmware, you have the connectivity issues. In that one, we weren't dealing yet with the connectivity issues because we didn't use Bluetooth. We wanted to test the market first to see would anybody really buy this, and then we did a lot of customer surveys beforehand and customer development. But it's very difficult, and I think people sometimes underestimate how long and how much money it takes. Almost every startup is going to take you longer than you think and cost more money than you think. So when you think, oh, here's my budget, I know exactly what it's going to be, have that budget, because it's going to take longer, even if it's just software. And what also happens is people tend to, and this has happened in other hardware startups that I work with, they underestimate the software because something goes wrong with the hardware, they're having trouble in the manufacturing, that gets stretched out. People aren't really as disciplined about their Gantt chart and about critical points that, if you miss this date, everything moves. And they're like, oh no, we can just compress this over here. And it's like, well, then you didn't create a good timeline in the first place. So these kind of things are super important. And then really understanding when you're working with OEM partners that you are at their mercy.
You said that the budget that you are planning when you launch a product exceeds at one point. What's the amount that exceeds 20%, 25, 30? Is there a statistics?
Well, I think part of it is, one, you have to focus, and there's so little you can control, right? The world happens, but you can control your costs. So you have to really understand your costs at every moment. So when I ask CEOs, like, how much do you have in the bank? And they tell me they don't know, I'm pretty upset about that. Because you really need to know, really, what is your runway? How long are you going to make it? And so I always tell people, like, this is what you think the budget is, at least at 50%. At least 50, at least. And I've seen people go way over that, but I think you've got to be super careful about that, because most companies die because they run out of money. Because at some point you go over the cliff. You have no money left.
I want to go further to another topic. I'm very passionate about photography and video. I make a lot of videos and a lot of photography on my phone and also on my DSLR camera. And at the end of the day, when I come home, it's a total mess on my hard drive with all the pictures from the phone, from the DSLR. At one point, I know you were involved in a startup which tried to solve this problem. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Okay, this is a company called iFi, and we created a wireless SD card for digital cameras. It was created by 4 founders. One of the guys had the problem that he would go to a wedding, you know, they were in the stage while the friends getting married, everybody would take pictures, and be like, yeah, I'll send you those pictures. Nobody ever got the pictures, and he's like, there's got to be a way to solve this, right? So it's usually a problem that you have that you want to solve. And you know, the idea was really to get that, but it's in a very small form factor. You don't have a lot of space on an SD card. It already is used as a product. So we had to figure out a way to get an antenna in there and, you know, get the actual, not just, you know, it already has memory, but you got to get a Wi-Fi chip in there. So we were using Wi-Fi as a connectivity piece because, again, this is before the whole BLE, you know, thing happened. And we're drawing power, and, you know, a regular Bluetooth chip wouldn't have worked. And then creating the software so that you could automatically upload those photos. So you'd have the photo, your camera on, and it could automatically upload to your desktop and later to your phone. You could be out in the field somewhere and upload that photo. And this is one of the best technical teams that I ever worked with, and they're all doing different things now, all over the company. I think Aaron might still be there. They sold to Ricoh, 2 different companies.
Is the iFi still producing?
It is still available, so there's a product, and there's a software product called iFi Mobi for the phone. So these products still exist. They were, so Ricoh bought part of it, and another, I left, you know, they got another CEO, whom I know today, but, you know, at certain points, I'm no longer that useful. I'm more useful at the beginning of companies, and then not as useful as they get selling hundreds of thousands of units of product, and not a lot for me to do.
At one point, people started loving preparing food at home. When that happened, when a lot of recipes were posted online on different websites, a lot of applications appeared which told you different recipes from different countries, different types of meals. I've read about Drop, another startup you were involved in, that you also were recommending recipes for people installing the app. How did you manage to fight the competition? We had on App Store, I think there were at one point more than 1 million apps. So how do you find the competition? Do you have a formula for that?
I mean, there are a lot of different ways to deal with that. So Drop was a company, so I also mentor at, you know, Founder Institute, of course, but also at Highway 1. And Highway 1 is out of PCH, the better manufacturer. They do a lot of, used to do a lot of Apple's soft goods, so all the cords that you buy and those things. So they have an incubator called Highway 1, and I'm a mentor there, and that's where I was introduced to Drop and really fell in love with the team. It's a team in Dublin. Really beautiful product, really great designers. And the idea is it's a little tiny scale, and you use your screen as your phone or your iPad. We started with the iPad, and now we do the iPhone as well. The idea was that, you know, typically when you're baking, because baking, we started with baking because in the US we don't use scales as much in the US. It's very common in Europe to use a scale to cook. It's not as common in the US. With baking, baking is a science. It's not an art. You know, you're not just throwing it around like the Swedish chef on Muppets. You've got to kind of have the exact amount of flour and the exact amount of all of the ingredients. So we did this in this scale, and it's so beautifully done. And it'll just say place a bowl on top. And so you place the bowl there, and then it zeroes it out. And then it says add the milk. And as you're adding it, it shows you that you're getting close to the fill point. So you're not having to remeasure and dirty up a lot of dishes. So it's a really fun experience. That product, we went from, you know, creation to actually shipping in the Apple Store in, you know, less than a year, which wasn't really wanting them to go in the Apple Store yet. I usually try and get people not to put consumer products in retail right away, because retail can be fraught with problems. You know, it's like, oh, Target wants to buy my product, and so you send them 3,000 units, 2 for every store, and now if they don't like them, they ship them back to you. So now you're in big trouble, because now you have to pay Target back, and now you got a bunch of boxes with product. You know, so I try and recommend to people, don't do that. I mean, Apple's a little better because they don't have such a big footprint as some of these large companies. So we launched in the Apple Store, and that was actually very good for us. Apple helped promote us. So that was a huge boon, because, you know, the halo effect of Apple. But, you know, we have now, we're kind of transitioning and really working with a lot of the manufacturers. So now you're going to start to see new products from brand name manufacturers that you know out there. One that I can mention is Bosch. I don't know which other ones are public. That you're going to see products that integrate our weighing capability with our recipe platform. So we want to become a platform, but sometimes it's very difficult to become a platform if you don't show an instantiation of the product. So we had to create a piece of hardware first. We didn't really want to be in hardware.
How do you monetize the project?
So the product costs, I mean, you buy, you know, the scale, it used to be $99, it's now $79, or I think 79 euros in Europe. And then right now we're not monetizing on the app, but that will change in the future. And then with the OEMs, they're going to be integrating that, and so they're going to pay us a, you know, per unit basis on that. And then there's fees for all the users and things like that. So there's different monetization schemes that you can come up with. I think there's a lot we could do on the app in terms of connecting to things like Instacart, you know, being able to buy the shopping cart, getting celebrity chefs on there and being able to buy, you know, not menu packs, but recipe packs. So there are things that, you know, we have ideas for, but we haven't delivered yet on that product, for that aspect of the product.
Maintaining the same idea, what are the key things a tech entrepreneur should take into account in this world, crowded world of applications, of tech startups, to fight the competition, to promote his product?
Well, I think, you know, I work with a lot, having been a CEO, you know, and then I work with a lot of CEOs, and the one thing I really try and impress upon them is you really have to focus, and you really have to figure out what is the problem that you're trying to solve. Because what happens sometimes is you create something because you think, you know, you might be one of the customers, but you're a voice of one. So you create something and spend all this time and energy because you might be, that's what you know how to do as a programmer, and then you think the world's going to love your product. Don't write a line of code until you've talked to customers that you're going after. Start to understand what are their problems, how do they think about that problem. You may think that's a solution. If you fall in love with your solution, you could be in big trouble, because if your solution isn't going to fit the problems the customer really has, and you haven't understood that problem well enough, you fall in love with something that nobody is going to want. So you really have to, it's so important to get out of the building and talk to customers and understand what their perspective is, why they feel like that, how they're trying to fix it, and to really dig deep in those areas. And then to write down what you think your expectations are and what you think your hypotheses are, because otherwise you're going to go, oh, I knew that. Because that's what we have, that confirmation bias. It's like, oh, I always knew that. No, you didn't. You thought this. So that way you can start to understand what is your train of thought, why that was good or bad. You know, otherwise you're not going to learn from it, right? And I think that's what we tend to do what we know. You know, marketers will try and market, or, you know, fix SEO and all of these kind of things. Coders will just try and add a new button or a new, you know, feature or function. And, you know, at iPhone, like when we first were going to release the product, they were going to put in geotagging. Well, we didn't have a GPS. so we were going to use Wi-Fi triangulation. And I said, no. I said, you guys have been working on this product so long, nobody's ever even heard of it. And you're adding another feature that they're going to have an expectation of and you're not going to deliver on. So we took it out. They delivered the product. Everybody asked for geotagging. And so then we said, okay, we can do it. We don't have GPS. Here's how we're going to do it. And then everybody loved the feature that we gave them. But if we said we had geotagging, your assumption would have been it's GPS. It's going to be 100% accurate. So really understanding, you've been working on your product so long and you think it should have another feature. Less is more. Do something really well. Solve a problem really well for the customer so that they go, wow, you did an amazing job with that. What, could you give me this as well? And so then if you come back to me with a new product or a new feature, you might be able to upsell me because you already own me as a customer and I am a fan of what you do. And so I'm willing to buy from you again. So don't make this mistake of trying to do 100 things. You're not going to do them well. You don't have the resources.
Madeline, you are the fourth day in Moldova. Some trusted sources told me that you have met startups, young people, entrepreneurs. How do you feel the tech community from here, from the first globe?
I have to say I'm really impressed. I've been, it's not my first time in this kind of side of the world. I've been to Ukraine, I've been to Almaty. And what I found in all of these places is that you guys are much farther along. You've got customers, you have revenue. I mean, a lot of times in the US, people don't have the revenue. They don't, and I think part of that's because of need. You're not getting the kind of money. And sometimes people get a bunch of money and then they kind of faff around and don't do a good job and get defocused because, the investors are expecting them to spend this money and they're spending it incorrectly because they're trying to do things when they haven't figured out the basic foundation. So I've been really impressed with what you guys have done, and especially because you don't have the community that we have. It's so easy, if one of my guys is struggling or gals is struggling with a problem, I'm able to call another friend in another company and say, hey, can you sit down and talk to them? They've got this issue on, how to do X, Y, and Z. And, so there's a lot of collaboration. So there's a lot more resource, not just dollars, but there's a lot more resource in terms of being able to pick up the phone or go get a cup of coffee with someone who's experienced the problem you've had. So one of the things I would definitely encourage all of you that are in this startup community or interested in the startup community, get everybody's contacts, make friends, be curious about what other people are doing and share, because you could say, hey, I tried this new tool and it's really been useful for me, you might want to check it out. Or, hey, I'm having trouble with how to figure out my customer voice, what are the tools that you're using here? So that kind of collaboration, it's so critically important, and that's what you're going to have to build here. But I think you've got a pretty good foundation.
Madeline, one question that I think a lot about this, you mentioned that someone starting a business, starting a startup, should solve a problem and should solve it really good. How can we, as a small country, somebody says we're poor, can we solve the big problems of the world?
Well, I think even big problems still have to start small. You may think really big, right? Like I want to, I've got a company, they're working in material science, so they're trying to figure that out, right? Like they know what they kind of want to do, and it's a really huge market. If you're going to deal with plastics, it's a huge market, it's everywhere, but how are they going to tackle it? And part of what I've been challenging them about is, so in this giant big market, who are you going to focus on and why? Why is this the best one to start with? And so we've really kind of worked on honing that down, and that's part of it. At i5, we had a lot of users that were power users, and they would complain all the time because they wanted all these features, but they wanted it, but there was a solution for them, but it was a $1,000 solution. Ours was $149, right? So I was like, don't listen to those people. They're going to buy the product anyway because it's hard for them to do this and it's super expensive. So who are we really targeting? And so we created a profile of Katie, right? So we worked with a team and really kind of figured out who was going to buy this product. And we named her. She had an age, and she was between the age of 24 and 35. She had 2 children under the age of 12. And so then when we would talk about a feature, my question was always like, does Katie care? And if they were like, well, no, but you know, a bunch of guys where we were talking, and we thought this would be a really cool thing to do. It's like, if Katie doesn't care, we shouldn't care about it, right? Because you have to build for somebody, and other people will then buy it. So even in a small country, you still have many of the problems that anybody else has, right? You need a taxi that works, right? So there can be a taxi service. You need babysitters. You need books. You need all of these things that you need and want. It's not that different. We're all kind of the same that way. And the question is, can you do something and do it well here, and then move it to another, you know, this is where you have the test ground, and then go to another place.
So, as a conclusion, start locally, focus on a local problem, but a problem which exists also in Romania, Ukraine, Poland, and Germany, and then slowly expand your solution, your software, your program, the thing you are doing. That's your advice. Start.
Yeah, I mean, you will get other people who say think global. Absolutely, you can think global, but you cannot come out of the box and sell in Germany and France and the US and Russia and all of these places because you don't have the support set up. You don't have the language support. You don't, if you're building a product, you don't have the, you know, certifications to sell in that market. So you got to be realistic about what you can achieve, but do think about problems that other people are going to have, so that if you do it well here, you can take it somewhere else.
I have a couple of questions more, but if somebody from the audience has also questions, please raise your hand, and I'll make you a sign when I'm ready. Okay. Madeline, what are the things a tech entrepreneur should do?
One, you really shouldn't always believe your hypothesis. You have to test it. So don't, you know, I think sometimes we're kind of like, we know this is right, and it's not about being pig-headed or being wishy-washy, and someone says, go left, and you run left, and somebody says, go right, and go right. You know, you got to be clear in what your North Star is and to listen. So you have to have, you know, the humility to be able to listen to feedback, and to know when that feedback is important to you and then it makes sense and lands for you, and when feedback doesn't make sense. And don't just tell someone what they want to hear. If you don't think that feedback is good, don't be defensive about it. So don't ever be defensive, but say, you know, tell me more about that, because this is how I see this. Because you might be missing what their perspective is, or you know, you might then convince them that what they were looking at was not the right way. So try not to be defensive. People are going to tell you, your friends are always going to tell you, and don't rely just on your friends and family, because they love you and they're going to tell you you're doing a wonderful job. And
They're going to like it.
they like you. Well, they do. Well, most people don't want to be mean, right? You want to be nice to people, but you want to get honest feedback, and that's why it's important to try and find that customer. You know, to use whatever way to get somebody off the street to come in and look at the usability. So, but don't be defensive. Take the criticisms, because that's how you're going to learn, and you're going to learn more from screwing up than you are from success. I mean, when you fail, that's when you got to get up and dust yourself off and go, what did I do? Why did I fall down that manhole? I didn't see it. Why didn't I see that? So instead of just going, oh, everybody's stupid, they cut a hole in the ground, they shouldn't have done that. No, look at yourself and try and figure out and learn from that. And I think that's where you're going to have more success and be able to grow as a person and as an entrepreneur.
As an insight, I made a couple of interviews a few months ago with tech entrepreneurs. All of them said that 80 to 90% of all my tests were failures. So actually, only 10% of my actions, my startups, my businesses have succeeded in what they did. Only 10%, 10 to 15. Is that a viable figure for US right now?
Yeah, I think it's very, every now and then somebody has a hit on their first time, and then they think they know everything, and 9 times out of 10 their second company is a complete and utter failure because they didn't learn anything in the process. They got lucky, or they had the right investor that helped steer them in a certain way, or get an exit for X, Y, and Z. So, failure is going to teach you a lot, and you're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. We're human beings and we make mistakes. And particularly in tech, if you knew the future, everybody would be sitting back with a crystal ball and just making money. You gotta take that chance. You gotta step off the cliff. You gotta risk a little bit. And if you fall down, you just gotta get back up. You have to know your limitations too. I mean, in a lot of cases, in mentoring at the Founder Institute, we start off with a class of 60 in San Francisco. And, we talk about how hard it is, and it's like, if you're not willing to do this all of the time and spend, this kind of effort and these kind of things and really work at it, then maybe it's not for you. It sounds more, everybody reads TechCrunch and, so-and-so raised $5 million or $10 million or $50 million. Even if you get that $5 million check, if you don't have customers yet, you haven't even put your shoes on and you're 2 miles back in the pack in the race for the marathon because you're, a 15-minute miler. So you haven't even started that race and you haven't even tied your shoes. So raising money is not an end in itself. It's a beginning that creates more responsibility and actually more risk. So don't get, people are like, hey, I raised $5 million. Yes, okay, now what are you going to do?
And now it's the real stress, yeah.
Yeah, because it's super stressful when you've got other people's money, right? Or when you raise money from friends and family.
By the way, let's pretend I am a startupper. I have an idea, a great idea. I have tested it. I have some positive feedback. I need money. How do I raise money big here in Moldova?
It's hard raising money everywhere right now. I mean, if you're a big company, if you're raising a B and the higher level, it's very easy to get seed money in the U.S. because there's a lot of people that have made money and they're writing small checks.
Explain about the thing with ABC because not everybody knows this.
Okay, so a seed round is like a little seed that you're going to plant in the ground and water and hopefully grow. So seed stage is very early, really not proven out, although these days people still want to see traction even for the seed round. It's amazing. It used to not be like that. It used to be more like the A round. And then the A round is, you're getting a little further along. It's probably $3 to $5 million raise. As you get further along, now you're starting to ramp. That's going to be your B and C round, and D round, as you're ramping up. And you look at a lot of these companies and, like Uber loses $500 million a quarter. Like, it's not a profitable enterprise, right? People keep throwing money into it because they believe that it's going to do X, Y, and Z. So, one, it's the investor is looking at you.
Where do I find those investors? Whom do I write?
Okay, so who do you write? So, one, you have to understand what domain, right? So, on AngelList, you can find people who are interested in material science or hardware or SaaS or enterprise, so you can find kind of, you can look on not just AngelList, there's Gus, there's ways to find different angels, and it's also contacts, people who invest in those areas. There are also a number of VCs, the venture capitals that actually focus on seed rounds, like first round capital, soft tech. So there's a number of folks that actually write checks that are seed money. So part of it is understanding what industry you're in, who's investing in that industry. Look at other startups that are kind of in your thing. Who invested in them? Usually you can find that out. So you've got to do some work, right? It's not about, a lot of times people will call me and go, who should I talk to for an investment? I'm like, you tell me. If you want to talk to somebody, you tell me what firm, what person in the firm, and why you think they're the right person. Don't make me do the work. You do the work. I don't have time to do that for you. Like sometimes it comes off the top of my head. because I'll be like, oh, I know so-and-so who just did this, but 9 times out of 10, you got to do the work because you need to understand who these people are and understand how to talk to them about what's their hot button, what's their passion, what's their thesis. So there's tons of information out there to be able to get that. So you create your spreadsheet. You prioritize those people in A, B, and C list. And what I usually do is go to my C list first because I test on these people
that... How do you react at your messages?
Yeah, I don't go to the people that I really want around. I go to these other people. Like I did this for someone the other day, and this one person is super interested in this is a C-level person. I was just wanting feedback. So that's a good sign to me to be able to, well, maybe I should move up the food chain and go further up the chain. So you have your list of people, and then you go to your next list of people. But it's about, you have to do your homework. And as I said the other night, luck is on the side of the people that prepare. If you're prepared, you become more lucky because you know. Like I remember at CIC, this was the spin out from Stanford Research, and we did handwriting recognition, and I licensed it to like 17 manufacturers worldwide, but I wanted Compaq, so I'm really dating myself now. Compaq was the #1 computer manufacturer at that time, and I had been after them for 8 years, so knocking on the door, slamming my face, knocking on the door, keeping them updated. I knew what different product managers were interested in. I'd be like, hey, maybe you'd be interested. And they was always like, thank you. So I was always trying to be resourceful and be a resource to them. And so I found out the chairman was actually going to be in town, Ben Rosen. So I got my way into this event, and I had, these were tablets. They were big. Like, this thing was heavy, right? And I walked up to him, I was a little skinny, scrawny little thing, and I walked up and I'm talking to Ben Rosen. He's kind of an important guy in the industry. And he was saying, what do you do? And I told him, and he said, is it any good? And I said, if you'll pardon my French, sir, it's a hell of a lot better than what you've got in your product right now. And he just kind of looked at me and he said, oh, really? And I said, yes, it is. And he said, well, I'd like to see that. And I said, well, I happen to have it right here. So I pulled it out of my backpack and I showed it to him. And he got me a meeting with the CEO, and we ended up closing that deal. But I made my luck. I knew he was going to be in town. I figured out how to get in there.
So you followed them for 8 years?
Yeah. I tried to sell to them for 8 years. Well, I was selling, they were my stretch goal, right? So when you have customers, you might want to sell to, Apple, but you're not going to get Apple on the first try, right? So I started with NCR because NCR was a $6 billion company and they had flat sales. So I had something that might help their sales, right? Compaq wasn't going to listen to me. They were making money hand over fist. Who cares? I had nothing to say to them. I had no way to influence that until the market started to change. So I started with these other companies, Fujitsu, other manufacturers, IBM, NCR, all of those guys. They were my stretch goals. So I just kept going back to them, right? Here's what we have. And so it's about persistence. It's about kind of identifying your targets and then making your own luck. You got to know where are these people going to be. You have to network. You have to get yourself out there. You got to be willing for someone to laugh in your face and tell you, no, I'm totally not interested.
Madeline, my last question for you. After that, I will give the floor to our guests. We see a lot of news. We're actually trained by news from Facebook, from news websites. The world is going mobile. The world is going virtual reality. The world is going artificial intelligence. Where is the world heading, actually? If you come from Silicon Valley, you should know the answer to this question. And what are the trends that you see as ground people there in Silicon Valley?
Trends are always trends that, they can be very trendy, right? So people will talk about a particular type of technology, like all the whole thing about data science, data was like, oh, it's a data play. Like you're going to collect all this data and data play. That was the big, everybody was always talking about that for years. And then it was like, what is it? Now today, AI. Everybody talks about AI. Half the time, what people are talking about are not AI. It's not really artificial intelligence. It's just, scripts that do certain things. So there are these kind of trends. I do think artificial intelligence and data science are very important. So there's a lot more importance in data science because all of these little devices that we wear, that we use, that we interact with, whether it's in apps, there's tons of data collected, and now the challenge is going to be, we're going to choke on all that data. And so how do you figure out how to make that data actionable? How do you make that data useful for people? So I think that is an area that's going to become more and more important, and you are seeing a lot of kind of successes in data analytics and data monitoring. I do think AI, you're starting to see stuff that's in the background where people are actually doing true AI, and it's going to become much more important, and you're seeing that with the whole voice interface. I mean, a lot of that kind of voice interaction and how that works. Fintech is becoming more and more important because so much of the world is not banked. They don't have bank accounts. And so, and even if you do have bank accounts, fintech has been super, it's a closed industry, but it's actually, there's a lot that's happening there. I mean, you look at Mint, do you remember that company Mint? So Mint was scraping data to allow you to see what was happening in your finances. And they got bought for almost, like over $400 million, right? And so you're seeing a lot of Venmo. So the ability to, like, we're out to dinner and I forget my wallet and you pay for my dinner, I can send you the $20 right then and there, right? So these things that are even happening in America, but you see that it's even more important in some of these other areas where you guys aren't as comfortable with using a credit card and putting it on the internet. A lot of cultures are not, they're just not. I was down in Peru and you could, on one of the taxi services that they have, Easy Taxi, you can pay by cash or by credit card. In the US, you have no choice to pay by cash. If you use Lyft or Uber, it's all credit card. So, really understanding what the cultural things are, but I think banking and these kind of new economy financing things are going to be super important. VR, I still think we're not there yet. I think it's one of those things like, 20 years ago, everybody was talking about voice, and from what I heard when I was hearing it 20 years ago, people were like, oh, we were talking about that 20 years before this. So, and then finally now voice is something that we use, but it used to be horrible. And wasn't very useful. Now, still, we all have those autocorrects where you want to throw your phone or you just embarrassed yourself because it said something absolutely ridiculously stupid. And that is not at all what you said. I have mine in 2 languages, so sometimes it's on the Spanish keyboard and I say something, so it's trying to understand Spanish. I've spoken in English and I've sent messages that are not, they don't make any sense at all. I don't even know what language it ends up in. It's so bad. So a lot of these technologies, and I think AR is one of those, I think it's going to still be a long time before it's a useful, I think it might work better in the enterprise in the near term than it's going to be in the consumer side. I mean, I have a headset, I never use it. I mean, maybe I'm not normal, and maybe everybody who has a headset uses it every day. I don't think it's very fun. But I think VR is a little bit different, right, versus AR, and I think VR, I think there are more applications and things that in design that I've seen some very cool applications where people can walk around the design of a car in AR and super useful and stuff that's actually making money. So I think sometimes people get caught up in these, the buzzwords and it's the hype around it and then nobody cares because nobody uses it, and then finally people figure it out and we'll actually start to implement it.
Madeline, thanks a lot for your great insights from Silicon Valley. Our friend from here.
Hi, do you hear me?
I can hear you. Wait.
Okay, but I can. Anyway, so thank you, Madeline, for the discussions and introductions. Such a question that's bothering me. The thing is that what we do in a startup, we actually selfishly develop the solution for ourselves, for our own problem, and then figuring out how it can work maybe for other people and companies. So what do you think is the most effective or efficient way? Is it to finish the solution for ourselves, use it, and then say to others, hey, look at this, we're so cool, we're using it, and why don't you try? Or even from like zero and first experiments, tell people that we're experimenting with this solution for our problem. Would you like to join us in the experiments and try together? How is it maybe advisable from your side?
Yeah, I don't always think it's good to just build it for yourself. I mean, sometimes the drive comes from a problem that you've had or experienced, whether in your work or in play or in whatever you're doing, or it's an issue in the world that you care about. Like, I mean, I've seen people address more social issues and problems that they care deeply about that and they want to solve that problem. So it's got to be something that, you know, even if it's your own problem, you may want to be solving it for yourself because, you know, like Yuval at I-5 who was having trouble with getting the photos off his camera, but he also thought this was going to be something that other people would be interested in, and then we did a lot of research and talked to a lot of people about how do they feel about that, what are the expectations, who's going to buy it and who's going to use it, because what we were finding a lot is that it was actually women who were using the product, but a lot of times the guys were buying the product because the woman was the memory keeper, right? She's out there at soccer taking the pictures. She's more concerned about the birthday and having the pictures. You know, sometimes the dad would do it, but we were seeing it more happen with the mom. So really kind of understanding and teasing out who's the bigger audience in there. So I think, yes, you can solve the problem yourself, but if you build it just for yourself, that's like just talking to one customer and thinking that one customer has all the answers. You're only one customer. So you got to make sure that problem you think is, does it happen for each and every one of these people that are whatever this problem you're trying to solve.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi, Madeline. I wanted to ask you, what is the biggest lesson that you learned during all your entrepreneurial career so far?
That's a very good question. For me, I think since I have, you know, as being on boards and having invested some and things like that, I have learned that you cannot fall in love with the product. And that's why I talk a lot about falling in love with the problem versus the product, because I have fallen in love with the product and then, you know, and then really understanding the team, and then you really have to understand the teams that you're working with, because again, when things go wrong, like when stuff is going well, people behave a certain way. And when stuff goes very poorly, you start to really see who the people are. And so you need to really understand with whom you're working and why you're working with those people. So I've had sort of alarm bells that I have squashed because I've fallen in love with the product so much. And I have learned now that sometimes I have loved the product very much, but I won't touch it because it's not the right people. So I think people are critically important because, again, these are the people that you're with all the time. And I think that you have to really look for people that have a strong sense of integrity, not just about who they are as a person, but integrity about how they're going to treat their customer and how they're going to treat you know, the community within they work. So I think those things for me were some hard lessons that I learned, and it was pretty brutal in some cases.
Thank you. One more question here.
Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm a psychologist. And I was wondering, you've mentioned that it's very stressful to be a startup founder. What would be your recommendation regarding to cope with stress for startups?
That is an excellent question. And I have to say, one of the things you have to think about balance, and you have to really, I would very much recommend meditating. And people are always like, oh, and I was one of those people, oh, meditation, yeah, right. And I went, you know, and then some friends presented me with brain science, so I'm one of these people that if you give me the facts, then I will change my position, but I had an opinion, and it wasn't the right one, and so I read these studies about mindfulness-based stress reduction, and they did these MRIs before and after this class, and it really changed the brain patterns. And I was like, okay, I believe it, and so I went and took a class. It really was amazing. And what I've learned, and I've gotten a lot of my CEOs to do meditation, and they're like, oh my God, it's really changed everything. And what I like to tell people is when they said, I don't have time to meditate. And I'm like, you don't have 10 minutes to take out of your day, whether it's to start your day or at the end of the day to take 10 minutes, then you need to be meditating for an hour. So you can take those 10 minutes and do it, because it's a, you know, and whether your meditation is yoga or running or just sitting there, you know, and I think the other piece about stress is if you don't take stock in what you're doing, like to sit down and kind of say, here are my goals, here's what I'm trying to achieve, you know, long term, here's what I'm going to do this week toward these goals, and then review that. If you don't, you end up completely stressed, because what happens is you get pulled in a lot of different directions and you're not doing the things that move your business forward. And then 6 months, a year, or whatever down the road, you become super depressed. And it can be very debilitating when you're not paying attention to that. And you know, I've seen people, you know, drink way too much. Friends of mine have gotten divorced. I've had friends that no longer talk to each other, that work to each other. And those are really sad parts. I mean, they're parts of life, but they're very sad experiences. And I think a lot of that can be avoided if you would just take a minute and take a deep breath. Like, that's what I told you today when they were stressed out and walked in. Just, it actually, they've proven it impacts your sympathetic nervous system. Take 3 deep breaths when you're freaking out about something and just get a hold of yourself and then go, okay, you know, I gotta start again. Because all you can control is your response to something, right? That's all you have control over. You can't control what's gonna happen. All you can control is how you respond to it. And meditation and breathing are gonna help you a lot.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you everybody for coming. At this point, we put a comma to our meeting. We have pizza and beer over there. Thank you Startup Wind and DreamUps for hosting this event. Thank you Madeline for bringing the Silicon Valley from California to Silicon Valley, Chisinau.
And thank you guys.
We hope to see you back again in Chisinau and share some great experiences and insights and thoughts, because from what I've seen and understood, United States is like 7, 9, 10 years ahead of what's happening in Moldova. We hope that we will catch up with you guys. Thank you.
You can do it. I
Thank
believe
you.
it.